Night Creatures is a 1962 horror adventure directed by Peter Graham Scott and stars Peter Cushing and Oliver Reed as the Royal Crown sends the Royal Navy to investigate reports of illegal smuggling and bootlegging in a small coastal town where locals believe in marsh phantoms. Scream Factory presents this film on HD Blu-ray with a 2K scan from the Interpositive. What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Mid-Level Media channel, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. And today, guys, we are going to dive into the latest Scream Factory release, Night Creatures. This is a 1962 film released under the Hammer Films production label. So I'll be up front right here. I am a real Hammer Films novice. I know that Peter Cushing, who's in this movie, and Christopher Lee were like in 90% of them, but I have not seen, I don't think, any Hammer films. I'm struggling to think of one off the top. I'm sure I've seen like one or two here and there that I'm not thinking of, but they did a lot of like Dracula, werewolf movies and stuff. I just haven't seen any of them. So I'm a real Hammer Films novice. So jumping into this one, I wasn't sure what to expect. I wasn't even 100% on if I was going to pick this release up, but the artwork, I'm telling you right now, just really sold me. And I do want to dive into more of these like classic spooky horror adventure type films. Just a really interesting time period for movies, and movies like this in particular. So I'm excited to get into this one to talk about the movie. We're going to talk about the audio visual quality, the special features. I'm going to do a little unboxing, and if you all are interested in picking this up based on my recommendation, I will leave a link for purchase in the description below. So yeah, before we get into Night Creatures, I'm excited to talk about this one. I really am. I want to ask that if you are not yet a subscriber to the Mid-Level Media channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button for more great content. I do all kinds of stuff on this channel, mostly centered around the world of physical media, new 4K and Blu-ray reviews like this. I do news updates every single Monday, letting you all know all the latest happenings in the world of physical media. I do Blu-ray out and about videos. I do collection updates, unboxing videos. So if you like Blu-rays and 4Ks, physical media, just keeping this whole physical thing alive, then hit that subscribe button. You won't be disappointed, I promise. And also hit that like button, and then comment down below. Did you see this movie back in the day? Are you familiar with this film, or is this your first time hearing about it? Are you going to pick this up based on my recommendation? Have you already picked this up? What do you think about the movie? Let me know in the comment section below, and also be sure to turn on those bell notifications for all future videos. Woo! I'm already tired, and we haven't even got into this review yet. So let's get to talking about this movie. And like I structure all my reviews, it is rambling. I am all over the place. I've got some notes right here, but I'm just going to get into my raw thoughts on this movie. So first off, right off the top, if you buy this expecting a movie where skeletons ride around on horses and kill people the whole movie, you're not getting that. In fact, you're not even really getting what I would call a straightforward horror movie with this. This is more like adventure period piece kind of filmmaking, storytelling. It is not really, it's very light on the horror. There is that creep factor there. It is atmospheric. It is spooky in parts. But most of that creep factor takes place like in the beginning, maybe one sequence in the middle, and then a little bit at the end. But so it is really light on horror. I would call this horror light. Again, not even, it reminded me of just one of those like old made-for-TV, like maybe an episode of Goosebumps. It honestly reminded me of like an episode of Goosebumps, but maybe even less scary than that. So just know that going in, this cover is awesome, but it also might be a little misleading. But that does not mean that this is not a good movie. I really did enjoy this movie, and I'm going to get into the things that I enjoyed about it. But first, I do want to talk about a little bit about the origin of this. So Hammer Films made this movie, and this is based on a like collection of books, like the Dr. Sin books. And this was in the special features. There was like 5 or 6 of those books. So Hammer Films wanted to start adapting those books, and they were going to go in order. They were going to start with this story, and then they were going to keep going with it. Because it's a whole elaborate mythology of this, you know, marshlands and the phantoms and Dr. Sin and his whole backstory. Like, it's a whole thing. So they started with this one, but when they got into the production of this movie, they realized that Disney was doing the exact same thing, and they actually made a 3-part television series based on the exact same story, and they had the rights to it. So they didn't know that. They were already into production, so they had to quickly change everything up and change the name of Dr. Sin who the legend is based off of, to Captain Clegg. So when you see this and watch this movie, it is based on books of Dr. Sin, but they had to change the name to Captain Clegg. So that was an interesting little wrinkle into the production of this movie. And they only ended up making one of these, I imagine, because they didn't feel like it was worth the trouble of continuing when it was already being adapted by Disney. So I haven't obviously seen the Disney versions. I don't really know too much about those, but I did think that was definitely pretty interesting. So yeah, they had to change all the character names. They changed a couple of plot points here and there as well. But I don't really want to give away too many details because there are some twists and turns in this story. So some things that could be considered spoilers that I don't really want to get into. So I'm going to try to talk about this in a little bit more vague way. This was a fun plot. Like I said, had some twists and turns in it. The ending was a little bit predictable to me. I kind of saw it coming a mile away. Again, I don't want to get into any specifics, but like pretty much right from the beginning, I kind of knew where things were going. And then we get into the plot of the movie. It is more or less about the Royal Army coming in, and you have these people that are trying to smuggle alcohol. I guess alcohol is illegal back then in England, back in late 1800s, because they just won America just won the war. And again, this takes place in England. So I imagine maybe the Royal Army, England, was trying to really impose its will upon its own people at that time, because they were maybe a little embarrassed that they just lost the war. So they were being even more uppity about things. So yeah, I don't really know all the history of that, but apparently booze are illegal and they cannot have them. So they're in there trying to bust them. And the people, the townspeople, are using this Phantom's legend that they're all afraid of kind of to their advantage. They're using it as a distraction against the Royal Army. So that is one interesting plot point. Again, like a lot of this takes place in the town. There's not really a whole lot of like creepiness or creepy scenes. It's more or less just like this game between the townspeople and the Royal Army that's coming in. Everybody's trying to figure out like what's really going on. And you got Peter Cushing, who is the priest, the reverend of this town, and he's trying to divert their attention elsewhere. But it's mainly just the townspeople trying to hide this alcohol, and they're doing it in very interesting ways. They're like hiding it in coffins and everything. From the people coming in to investigate, and then they use the marsh people as a distraction for that. It's the best way that I can describe this movie without, again, I don't want to give too much away about the plot, but not very horror-centric here for sure. But there are some cool effects for the time. Like they do show these marsh people in the movie, and they do look like this. They absolutely do look like this. So expect to see that in the movie at some point. You just don't get a lot of that. You just don't get a lot of that in this movie. But the effects for the time I thought were actually pretty cool. I love the setting, like this period piece setting, like the 1800s setting. Like they just capture that perfectly. The costumes are all on point. Just everything looks and feels like you're in that time period. All this looks and feels really, really good and really authentic. All the performances in this movie I enjoyed. Everything was everybody performed really well. Peter Cushing's really good in this role. He has an interesting wrinkle to his character that, again, if I really go into, it's going to spoil stuff, so I don't want to do that. But there's a lot of the twists and turns are really revolving around Peter Cushing and the character of Parson Bliss. So again, don't want to spoil anything, but he's absolutely great in this movie. You got Oliver Reed in this movie, who kind of reminded me a little bit of Mark Hamill, and I think he might be in that movie Paranoiac as well. I might be wrong, but he looked like the same guy that's on the cover in that, because when I saw that cover, which was another Scream Factory release that came out earlier this year, but when I saw that cover, I was like, that looks like Mark Hamill. I think it's the exact same guy. So he's really good in this movie. Patrick Allen as the captain from the Royal Army that comes in, I thought he was really good, really menacing. Really just kind of like take charge, really suspicious of everything that's going on. I thought he played his role really well. And then you got Yvonne Romaine, probably butchering this name, but Imogene. She was really nice to look at, and I'll say that. And she was also great in this movie. And yeah, I'm not familiar with that actress, but wow. Yeah, so she's good in this movie and the part that she plays. And there's some interesting revelations surrounding her character as well, I'll say. So it's a good movie. This is a good movie. Again, I don't even want to call it a problem or a negative with this movie, but the fact that this is released under the Scream Factory label and you have this kind of cover and it's just really not horror at all, could be considered misleading for some. So I really want you guys to know that. I really want to hammer that home. No pun intended. This is a Hammer Films production, but I really want to drive that home to you guys that this is not as horror as it may be indicated on this cover. So, but as for the actual movie, again, I like the performances. The set and costume design was great. Like, really, everything about this movie was good. This was a really good movie. So I'll give it a 4 out of a 5. Again, I really enjoyed the movie. It's just not, it's not horror. It's not horror. I struggle to call this movie horror in any way, shape, or form. But I will give this movie a 4 out of a 5. I did really enjoy it. I thought it was a really good movie from this time period. It definitely made me, it just gives me those feels. There's something just really nice about diving into a film in the early 60s, like that time period. It just, there's a good feeling. Like a film in the early 60s that's set like 200 years before. I don't know, there's something really interesting about that. It's a feel like no other. So I really enjoyed my time watching this movie. So let's dive into the transfer of this. So this is a new 2K scan from the Interpositive. You can get Night Creatures on Blu-ray, but it's a part of this 8-film Hammer film set from Universal. That's $25, and it has a lot of the films on it that I think it has Paranoiac in there as well. But that is I think two movies per disc, a 4-disc set. So I imagine that's going to be compressed, and definitely not the best way to view this movie visually. I'd say as far as the transfer for the Scream Factory release, it is really excellent as far as a Blu-ray release. Now, it is very thick and heavy on some of the grain. I'll say that because some of these outside sequences, it is very fuzzy, and there are sequences where you'll look at it and you'll be like, I don't know exactly. Some of them honestly look a little bit on the DVD side as far as like quality, like almost DVD level of quality in some of the sequences. But when this is firing on all cylinders, the transfer actually is really great. Like when they're inside in some of these like bar settings, you can really just notice the costumes, the colors on the costumes, the vibrancy of everything, just the backgrounds, everything's crystal clear. The facial details a lot better. It's really just some of these outside sequences where it's just really thick on the grain, especially when it like turns daylight. Like it looks even worse then. But again, I feel like I'm making this sound like an awful transfer. It is a good Blu-ray transfer, and I imagine that since not a lot of work has been done on this, they probably did it the best that they could. So it's a solid transfer, but again, it's not 4K. Like you're not gonna see level of detail that you see in like a 4K release, but it's still really solid, a really solid release, and probably the best way that you can view this film at this point in time. So let's get into the audio. This is a DTS HD Master Audio Mono, so I'm just listening to it on my soundbar. Everything sounded good. Like I said, a lot of it takes place outside, so you can hear like all of the bugs and the crickets and just all the noises, the outside ambient noises in your ears, and all of it just sounds really good. Now let's jump into the packaging. Like I said, I really love the artwork on this release. That is some awesome artwork right there. And on the back, you got, all the special features and the casting list, and then you take it out of the slipcover. It does have reversible cover art, which I love. That is definitely awesome. And I love it when they do like the different colors, because the Night Creatures is in white font on the spine and it's in red font on the other. So that's always awesome when they do that. You got some cool disc art in here as well, which I always appreciate. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this artwork. So I love the Scream Factory slipcover releases. That's why I said I saw the artwork on this and I just had to get it. It was definitely really awesome. I'm trying to look up the artist that did this one. So cover illustrator was Mark Maddox. So I'm not really familiar with any of his other work. I'm sure I've seen it on other Scream Factory release, but he did a hell of a job on this. So I definitely wanted to call out the artist, because Scream Factory does a good job. Not all the boutique labels do this, but they do a good job of making sure that they highlight their artist and illustrator on the back of the release so you can see it. Not all the releases do that, so sometimes it's hard to pick out who did the artwork on what, but Mark Maddox definitely did an awesome job with this artwork for sure. And diving into the special features, there are some great special features on this. You have almost 2 hours of special features, or maybe about an hour and a half to an hour and 40 minutes, but there's definitely some lengthy ones in here. There's a whole half-hour documentary on Peter Cushing and his career and how he got into horror films through Hammer Films, and how he never wanted to be like the horror guy, but he just kind of fell into it and kept doing it. Obviously, he got at it for a little bit when he did Star Wars, but how he wanted to kind of be well-rounded and do all kinds of different types of films. And he got into Hammer Films with this one, and this wasn't really like a horror film, so I guess he thought he was safe, and then all of a sudden he got into working with Hammer Films, and all of a sudden he's doing a bunch of horror films. So that was an interesting documentary. And then you have one that really dives into the making of this film and the production and how Disney kind of, took the idea and was doing their own films and the problems they had there production-wise. So that really offers a lot of insight on the making of this movie. And yeah, there's some really great sequences. You have a new audio commentary with historian Bruce Hallenbach. You get a new interview with special effects artist Brian Johnson, and the making of Captain Clegg, which is another half-hour documentary. So there's some really, really awesome special features in this. So they really, Scream Factory did a great job. Shout Factory, Scream Factory did a great job of really bringing the heat in this in the features here. So I appreciate that. So that is my review of Night Creatures, guys, on Blu-ray. If you are interested in purchasing this based on my recommendation, I will leave the link down below. And again, appreciate you guys for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, turn on those bell notifications, and follow me on all my social media accounts. Those links are in the description, and we'll see you next time.